I'm ready to go on to beep number 1 if everybody else is.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
Okie doke. So my first beep was happened when I was in an argument with my 2-year-old son on not playing in my drawer full of scissors. And in the moment of pulling him away from the drawer, the beep happens, and I wrote down that I was feeling frustrated but not mad, like a patient frustration. That's what I wrote.
And is the patient frustration the central thing in your experience? More
Yes.
more so than the scissors or the kid or the pulling?
I would say that the patiently frustrated feeling was about, I think it was half and half. 50% me feeling patiently frustrated and 50% me concerned and trying to get him away from the drawer.
Okay, well, let's start with the patiently frustrated. How does that present itself?
Physically, it was very, there was tension, but with that tension, there was an understanding that he's only 2. So I become patient with that frustration. And that's why I wrote patiently frustrated.
Okay. And so there's a tension, and by tension, did you mean bodily tension or mental tension or both or neither?
Both. The physical tension is not necessarily just concentrated in one part of my body. It's just a general subtle tension throughout, like my muscles, I would say. And then the mental tension is more just, I want to just be very stern and be upset and say, this is bad, and be upset, be frustrated. But the patient's aspects of that feeling is met with a calmness, because I understand that he's only 2, and so I can't be frustrated. I can't show, or at least I can't show my frustration. That makes sense.
So does that seem like 2 separate things? I'm frustrated and I'm trying not to show it. I'm trying to show sternness but not anger or something. And
well, it's like the patiently frustrated. So yeah, it's 2 feelings being together, happening at the same time. I know I'm frustrated because he's upset that he can't play in this dangerous drawer. I'm frustrated because he doesn't understand that it's dangerous, but I'm also patient about it because I know he's only 2. So I have to be patient with him and not impatient. So there's 2 feelings happening together at the same time.
so 2 separable feelings,
Yeah.
not one feeling with 2 aspects.
To me, they are 2 separate feelings.
As in, like, if the frustration weren't there, the understanding and the patience would still be there?
Yes. If he wasn't playing in the drawer, if it was maybe something else different, less dangerous, I would just have that one feeling.
Okay. So the 50%, which is at patiently frustrated, could be divided up into 25-25 or 20-30 or 10-40 or.
I would say 25-25.
Okay. And the patiently part of this is, well, there's only 2. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't show my frustration. I should show my sternness. Is that the same thing as patience? Patiently? Is that?
Could you ask the question again?
I guess I'm trying to understand what the patiently is here. In one way, it sounds like it's sort of something like, well, I know I'm frustrated, and I shouldn't show my frustrated. That's a sort of a self-analytic, self-monitoring, keeping myself in check kind of a thing. And another kind of patience would be, well, it's coming directly to me that he's only 2, and so I don't have to try to keep it in check. It's going to sort of automatically stay in check because he's only 2.
Right.
I'm sure I'm articulating that right, but
yeah, okay, I understand your question better. For me, the patiently part is, yes, there's a piece in there that is analytical of myself, knowing that I have to keep myself in check and not, get too frustrated. But also, too, there's the patiently is more of an understanding. Like I just understand that he is not going to understand me, so I just choose the understanding over the frustration. And in doing that, I'm negating the frustration in a way. Like I'm putting it at bay, and I
mitigating the frustration or something.
Yeah, I'm choosing the understanding, and so it kind of alleviates the tension, and I become less stern, or not stern, but just less frustrated. Yeah, the understanding, the patience is more of an understanding, knowing that he's not going to understand me, so it's better for me to just be calm and do this calmly. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other half of this is the trying to get him away, being concerned.
Yeah. So it's funny because my feelings kind of reflected my physical behavior just from what I noticed. But as I was feeling this and I'm pulling him away from the drawer, I'm prying his fingers off, which is, as people with children know, that can be kind of difficult. And he's very strong. So in pulling him away, I'm feeling like that same feeling of frustration, like just want to yank him away. But then I'm like, oh, I can't just yank him. They don't want to hurt his little fingers. So that patience feeling is there with that whole physical thing where I kind of just slowly start to, disengage him with the drawer. So it was like kind of all of that happening together.
So does that mean that I feel patiently frustrated, and at the same time I am targeting that patiently frustrated at his little fingers?
Yeah, I guess that's how it sounds. Yeah, at the time of feeling frustrated, it's because I'm prying his little fingers away from what's in the drawer. And in doing that, they've got these death grips, so it takes some strength on the other side. So in doing that, I'm like frustrated because I want him to open his hand and stop touching this stuff. But on the other end, I'm also very patient, so I have to take my time. I can't just rip it out of his hands. That's kind of what was going through my mind in that experience.
So that makes the whole experience seem sort of like a patiently frustrating feeling and action.
Yeah, it's very dichotomous.
Okay.
I have one more question about the feelings. So you described kind of what sounded kind of like a process. Like there's these feelings coming up and I'm choosing the understanding and it's kind of dominating the frustration and that's mitigating the whole thing and all of that. And I'm wondering if you mean that as in I directly experience that process. I experience myself choosing. I experience the way it alleviates and all of that. Or if what's really present to me is just the result of that. And then when I've got to tell you about it, well, on some subconscious, unconscious, whatever level, I must have been choosing.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm actively in the moment choosing understanding rather than frustration.
So you are experiencing that whole process. That's not just,
Yeah.
it's not just some neurons figuring that out. You are consciously aware of that whole thing.
Yes. Hmm.
And does it feel like the beep seems to catch all of that? Or is it sort of a sequential thing and the beep interrupts at a certain point?
Well, what I wrote down was that the beep happened at the time that he was in the drawer grabbing all the stuff as I was going in to take it away. And then the beep happened. And so I recorded my experience from the time of the beep up until the beep and but after the beep, I'd say.
So I'm already engaged in the act of patiently, frustratedly prying his fingers away.
Yes.
And does it make sense to say that at the moment of the beep, the feeling is more patient or more frustrated, or doesn't really make sense to say that?
Can't say which is more. Yeah.
Okay.
I just know I was choosing patience and understanding over the immediate feeling of frustration, that kind of automatic frustration.
Okay.
And I'm interested in the timeline aspect of this too. So,
Yeah.
In response to one of Alex's questions, I wondered whether how long the timeline that we're focusing on here is. I see is his fingers in the drawer, and then a second later I feel
he's already rummaging and getting into things before the beep. So I'm already feeling the frustration because he's already doing all his little toddler things in the drawer. And yes, before the beep. And then the beep occurred at the time that he was pulling out the scissors and getting into the more dangerous stuff. And at the same time, me pulling those scissors away and trying to pry his fingers away from the drawer, that the beep caught all that.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Then I'm good.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes.
Number 2.
Alrighty, where's my number 2? Okay, so beep number 2, I was listening to music and I was singing the words, got what I got. And at the same time of doing that, I was searching the chords for the song. And I recorded that I was feeling very excited or sensing excitement, but also feeling very contemplative because I really want to learn the chords to that song, to that one particular song. So yeah, I was listening to song, I was singing it out loud, and at the same time I was on my phone searching for the particular chords for that song, feeling and sensing excitement and contemplation.
Okay. And so just to get the context a little bit, is the song you're singing also the one that you're searching about?
Yeah.
Okay. And does it seem that sounded like kind of like 4-ish, maybe more things? Like I'm listening to the music and singing with it.
Yes.
Maybe those are separate, I guess we'll see. And I'm searching for the chords.
Yes.
And I've got a sense of excitement and I've got a sense of contemplation, or maybe those are feelings or.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And is one of those the most prominent?
The most prominent is the searching for the chords.
Mm-hmm. And most by like it's 50% of the experience, and then the others are 10, 10, 30 or something like that, or?
Yeah, I would say about that. Yeah.
Somewhere around like 50?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, well, let's just start there. So I'm searching for the chords so I can learn how to play this song. And is it guitar? Am I remembering right? You play guitar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Learning.
You're learning how to play guitar. Okay. And how exactly does the searching present itself to you?
The searching is presented in a thought of, I wonder what these chords are to this song, if it's easy or if it's complicated. And that's the contemplation aspect of it, is wondering about whether or not this would be easy to pick up. And then but at the same time excited, because I want to know, is this going to be an easy song to learn, or is this going to be a hard song to learn?
Okay. So somewhere in this experience, there is a wondering, or like an analytical kind of, I wonder if these are going to be hard to learn.
Yes.
And is that wondering, is that the searching experience, or are those things separate? Like there's an experience of searching, and separately, or, obviously related, but separately there's a wondering, a contemplation about what I'm going to find.
So the wondering is how I described it, is the wondering was more part of the contemplation. Is it hard? Is it going to be difficult? How am I going to learn this? Kind of like strategizing in my mind whether or not this is going to be a song that I can learn easily. That's part of the feelings that I get from contemplation. And then the sense of searching the chords, like the mechanicality of typing in my phone chords to so-and-so song, that's not at all present in my experience. It's just, like we said, this skillful driving thing. I'm picking up my phone, typing it in. I don't experience that part. I'm experiencing the emotions of doing that. So like the excitement, that was the other part of the emotion, was feeling excited, that the same kind of excitement I was feeling when I was telling you I was Googling that definition. Still like kind of like that on the edge of my seat, like, okay, what am I going to find? Is this going to be easy? Is this going to be hard? Am I going to know this? Am I going to have to learn something new? That was presented as excitement.
Okay. Okay, so let me see if I've got that. So I am in fact searching, like I'm typing in chords for whatever, and we should probably name this song at some point, but chords for this song. And that is going on automatically. It's coming out of my thumbs. I'm doing it, but I'm not really paying attention to that.
Yeah.
What I experience are feelings or senses or wonderings or something about what I'm going to get. Is that right? So would it make sense then to say that really the most prominent part of your experience, this 50% we're saying, are the feelings, the excitement and the contemplation about the searching?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I understood the wondering not to be a feeling thing.
Right. Yeah. My bad. Yep.
Yes.
So there's a wondering, which is something more cognitively thinking about whether this is going to be difficult. Can I learn this kind of a deal?
Yeah.
And at the same time as that, there's an excitement that is, I'm edging my chair. I'm gonna get the answer to this question.
Right. Yes.
And are those equally present to you in your experience?
Very present to me. Yeah.
Both of them.
Sorry?
Both of them?
Both are very present, yes.
Okay.
Both those feelings or contemplations, yes.
And so I do agree with that I understand there's a more cognitive wondering, but it did kind of seem like you were using some feeling language there, like you've called it a couple times, I think, like a feeling of contemplation, and by that, do you just mean wondering, or do you mean like there's an actual sense, or there's something beyond like a cognitive wondering? Yeah.
What I wrote down is the feeling the song, sensing excitement, but also feelings of contemplation. So even though I know the contemplation is a cognitive process, if I'm looking at it like that, but it comes up to me as a sensing. It comes to me as I'm sensing something, like very similar to what we've discussed in previous beats, and how I try to describe that sensing, that inner sensing, but it doesn't seem that I can, or at least I haven't found the right words yet. But yes, it comes to me as like a sensing of some sort. Like it's a subtle feeling, but it's there, and I know that I'm using whatever part of me to sense it. I don't know how to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying not to theorize. I don't want to like inject any what I think it is, but it comes to me as a sense of like tapping into myself kind of, and whatever that means. Like I don't know if that's it. I should say if I'm receiving some sort of something, like a signal in myself that I'm picking up on, like, oh, okay, I'm receiving the signal and I'm very aware of this signal, this internal signal. And I'm just kind of like feeling, like getting that sense of that feeling, but it comes to me as a sensing when I'm thinking or having this contemplation or feeling the excitement. It's it has an underlying sensing feeling, a sensorial, very, I don't know. I have a hard time describing this.
So these are very difficult kinds of things, I think.
Yeah.
And so I want to let's start with the word feeling that you've used a couple of times in this, but most of the time when you use feeling, you back away from it, you say feeling and then jerk back or whatever, and say, well, it's not really feeling. So I'm gathering that in this context about this, is it going to be easy or complicated deal? The word feeling there has to do with some kind of a sensing kind of a thing, or some kind of a bodily, soulful, something recognition, but not an emotional feeling. Is that right? This is not an...
I would say that there's emotion involved, but I wouldn't say that, like, and it's my sensing, my inner sensing that is recognizing what I'm experiencing. I know I'm feeling excitement and contemplation about the chords, and the excitement to some degree is my emotion about what I'm doing, and the contemplation, I would say, is the more cognitive part of what I'm doing. But what I'm gathering in that moment is that there seems to be this kind of awareness of a sensing of it, an awareness of the sensing of my excitement, or the awareness of my sensing of my contemplation about it, kind of like an echo. Like I'm just hearing this, like not hearing. It's not an auditory thing or a visual thing even, but it's definitely like an awareness that I am sensing these things. It's because it's very present to me in my experience that I am sensing the sensing of my feelings and my contemplation. Yeah.
So
when you say the sensing of my feelings, do you mean the sensing of the excitement?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I am aware of the fact that I am sensing. I'm aware of my sensingness. And then
so there's like a second degree of sensing or something. It sounds like it would not be right just to say I feel excited and I'm wondering if this is going to be hard.
Right.
Those things are happening and I'm sensing them happening?
Yes. Yeah. That's probably.
And is that different than just saying I experience them? Right? These things are in my experience?
Yeah, they're in my experience, but I'm also sensing the thing that is sensing the experience too. Like it's very third person. It's almost dissociative, but I'm very involved in the experience also. Like I understand, yes, I'm excited and I'm contemplated and I'm searching for these chords and I know the whole storyline of that. But there's this other part of me that is, yes, sensing the sensory of it all.
So that we sometimes use it, that's like a meta awareness.
Yeah, it's very awareness. Yeah.
And that was true in the first beat too. There was some kind of an awareness of Lena choosing to be
patient.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems that that's what I've been trying to kind of describe in some of these previous beeps. Like when I try to say sensing, it's this just awareness of what I'm doing, not of what I'm doing. I'm sorry. It's the awareness of my awareness. It's like looking at myself in third person, but it's not necessarily from a visual perspective or a internal speech perspective. It's just, it's a sensing thing. Like the same sensing you get when you touch a table, but it's inside, and it's, I don't know how to explain it any further than that.
And maybe a like skeptical observer of this video would say, well, she's just saying that she has this meta awareness because we've given her a beeper and we've kind of created this meta situation.
Right.
Is that
possible? But I know that in myself, like knowing myself, I have always been the kind of person that, I don't know how to explain it. It's just, I'm always very aware of myself being aware.
And is it right to say that that is going on regardless of if the beep comes? That's happening in Lena,
yeah.
And the beep catches it, the beep doesn't create it.
Yes, correct. Yes.
So at this particular moment, I'm searching for the song or searching for the chords. That's not particularly in my experience. What's in my experience is a wondering whether this is going to be easy or difficult, and that is to some degree cognitive, but to some degree bodily active or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, I'm feeling excited on the edge of my chair because I'm going to get the answer to this question.
Yeah.
And find the chords. And then I'm folded back on myself,
mm-hmm.
Observing both of these things happening. And that seems like that's a part of the wondering process.
Yes. Yes. It's just an awareness of my own sensing.
And at the same time, I am singing along to music.
Yes.
And do you experience that, or is that going on automatically?
I would say it's more automatic. I'm just following the lyrics to the song and not really thinking about it, or, yeah, I would say it's more automatic.
And what you're referring to is that the singing is automatic?
Yeah.
And at the moment of the beep, do you hear the music?
Yes, the music's playing.
So those are kind of two different things, right? Like the music's playing, it could be playing and I'm not really attending to it, or it's playing and I am, like it's registering?
Yes, so the music is playing, I'm aware that the music's playing, I'm singing along with it. I'm not necessarily thinking about the words I'm singing, I'm just, singing along with it,
Okay. So I'm not super engaged in the singing. Do I experience myself singing at all? Like, do I feel the physicality or the rhythm or anything, or it's just kind of coming out skillfully, but it's sort of like the searching, the typing into the search bar or whatever?
I would say it's a little bit more involved than just the typing in the search bar, because I'm aware that I'm singing. I understand that I'm singing, and but I'm not putting, but it doesn't seem to, I'm not adding a whole experience. It's not part of my experience in such a way that is taking away from the searching for the chords and having that whole sensing, excitement, thoughtful contemplation thing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Number 3.
Okay. So my daughter was talking to me at this time of this beep. She said too much of the cereals, and then I echoed her. I said cereals, and then the beep happened. When I echoed her words and I said cereals, I was thinking in my mind about the food from the freezer and how we have so much food in the freezer that I'm going to take some over to my brother. And I was just contemplating about which food I'm going to take. And at the time of contemplating that, my daughter's talking to me, and I echoed the word cereals. And it was very automatic. The echoing, when she said too much of the cereals, I said cereals, and I think that was automatic she was talking and I automatically responded, didn't really think about it because I'm already occupied. I was occupied in my own thoughts, thinking about the food in the freezer and what I'm going to select to take over to my brother.
And so does that mean that as far as your experience is concerned, you're 100% into the food to your brother thing?
Yeah, I would say 90%. For the majority of it, I was very focused on that task.
So there's a little bit of the recognition of what your daughter is saying, and you're
Yeah.
and you're responding to it and whatever, but
Yeah.
mostly about your brother and the food in the freezer.
Correct.
And how does that come to you?
I see my brother. I have this visual thing again, because I know that I need to take out some of this stuff from the freezer. And the first place I think to do that is to take it to my brother. And he pops in my head as a visual representation of just his face, like nothing crazy, not him doing anything, just kind of the idea of him comes up through a visual representation. And so I'm
face on.
Yeah.
From the front.
From the front. Yep.
Okay. And so part of this experience involves seeing your brother.
Mm.
And is other parts of the experience something about the food, or is that sort of implied in the seeing of your brother? This is, I know myself. I'm thinking about food in the freezer, and the brother's face indicates, well, I'm probably going to take it to him.
Yeah, the only part of the food that I was contemplating was which of the food items in the freezer I was going to take.
And is that present at the moment of the beep and interrupted by the beep?
Yes. So in the thought of that, the beep interrupted as Livia was talking, as I was thinking that, and as I echoed cereals, the beep went off in that moment, and I walked over to my notepad.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is sometimes it seems like I'm trying to differentiate between what's in the freezer. I could take the ground meat and keep the chicken or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that part of your experience, or is that sort of implied or taken for granted or something in the experience?
It's part of my experience is I am deciding which food to take. That was the most present.
And how is that present to you?
I'm deciding what food I know we won't eat. I just not deciding, because it's like I already know what food in this fridge is not going to get eaten. So I already know that's not going to get eaten. So I'm going to take that out and take it to him, see if he'll eat it.
But you're not at this moment. You're not specifying what that is. That's not the hamburger patties or whatever. It's that I know what it is and I don't have to specify it.
Yeah. Yeah. If I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying I'm looking in the freezer and I can look and see at this one particular item and say to myself, that's going to be the item that he may eat that we won't eat.
Well, that's not exactly what I had in mind. Are you looking inside the freezer at this moment?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I hadn't understood that part.
Wasn't very clear about what my surrounding was. Yeah, I'm actually in the freezer doing this whole thing, not just randomly thinking up what could possibly be in there. I'm looking inside the freezer at all the items that I can see and having that deciding going on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So while I'm physically looking at the objects,
yeah,
I am recognizing, well, we probably won't eat that. We probably will eat that, whatever.
Yeah.
And along with the part that we won't eat, I have I'm seeing my brother's face.
Yeah, very background. It's not necessarily very direct. Like what's most direct is me deciding about the food, and his face is present to me in my mind as the person that I'm deciding to bring this food to.
And so I'm in the freezer,
Mm-hmm.
looking in the freezer,
Yeah.
and I'm in some way dividing up in my this food will keep, this food will send.
Yes.
And does that seem like a visual thing? When I look at this food, I just immediately see that as keep, and when I look at that food, I immediately see that as send? Or is this some kind of a cognitive, analytical, I am in some way analyzing whether this is a keeper or a giver?
I'm more cognitively analyzing whether or not the food should be kept or not.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so is it then the case that at the moment of this beep, the primary portion of my experience is a cognitive, analytical, should I keep this or not?
Yes, that is the primary experience.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then about that aspect, should I keep or not, is that similar or different to from the previous beeps? I'm wondering whether the chords are going to be difficult or easier. Can I do them?
It's similar in that that there is a wondering, is this going to be something that we're going to eat, or is this not going to be something that we're going to eat? So the wondering is there. The same sort of wondering is there.
Okay. And the difference, I understand, is that in the previous beep, there was also some kind of a excitement,
Yes.
feeling, sensing, whatever,
Yes.
that isn't really present here.
No excitement is present in this experience.
And in the previous beep, there was this inner meta sensing of what you were experiencing, and I don't hear that happening in this one.
In this one, I wasn't aware of myself being aware of my choice, of the choices that I was making. I wasn't presently active in that. Mm-hmm. I was presently mostly active in the decision between keeping or giving away. I was more in that space rather than having that moment of kind of overlooking the whole thing and sensing the whole thing, like in other beeps.
And does this experience seem more like a cognitive thing where my eyes and my apparatus are involved, or they're supplying the information on which I am deciding whether I should keep or not? Or does this seem like a visual thing where as I look at the pork chops, I can see that's a keeper, and when I look at the ground meat, I can see that that's a... So
I would say that it's both happening together. As I'm visualizing or visually seeing the food in the freezer, I'm having a cognitive, analytical weighing of decisions about the food I'm looking at.
And as far as your experience is concerned, so I'm accepting that that's true, what you just said there. But as far as your experience is concerned, do both of those seem equal in your experience, or does it seem more visual or more cognitive, or doesn't that distinction make sense?
To me, in my experience, what seems most aware, like what I'm most aware of, is the cognitive, analytical, trying to decide between what I'm seeing.
Okay. And by most, do you mean 60-40 or 90-10 or 80-20?
I would say, 70-30.
So quite a bit more cognitively
and
analyzing on this situation.
Yes.
And then I'm still gathering that the interaction with the daughter
Yeah.
is still down in the 10% range. It's happening. It's coming out of me. I'm hearing obviously what she's saying, and I am responding to it.
Yes. So I'm so involved in the thought of what I'm doing, of the decision I'm making, that I know she just said something. I'm aware of the words. I heard the words because I repeated one of the words to her. But it's funny because in that's where I have that inner sensing in that specific moment, where I'm sensing that I know that she said something and I know I said something, but I also know that I wasn't very aware. I'm aware of my unawareness of that moment. I was aware of not being aware. And
In the moment, you're aware of that?
I was, yes. And when she said those words to me and then I echoed cereals, I became aware that I was not being aware.
And that's prior to the beep?
That was in the midst of the beep. Because right as I was looking in the fridge and doing those tasks, she spoke to me and the beep went off. And when she spoke to me, I realized, oh, I'm not being aware because I didn't respond to her in the way that a normal person would in a question like that. And
So
then
I'm trying to ask the same question that Alec asked about the last beep, I think, and that is it the beep that forces you into this folding your consciousness back on itself, or what we sometimes call meta awareness, the awareness of being aware?
Mm-hmm.
Or was that already ongoing and the beep catches that in flight?
Already ongoing. I'm already having an experience of looking in the freezer, looking at the food, deciding, hearing my daughter speak, realizing, oh, I'm not being very aware right now.
And then beep.
And then beep. Yes. Yes. And then I walk over in the midst of all that stuff jumbling around inside, walk over to my notepad and record as best as I can what was just happening for myself.
Okay.
Yes.
And I also understood by your rendition that when you repeat the word cereal,
Yeah.
you repeat it with some inflection that goes beyond what your daughter had said.
Yeah, it was
Sing-song it, or I don't know exactly what word to use about that, but
yeah, it was funny. She said too much of the cereals, like she was asking a question, and then I said cereals. So, and I knew when I said that, that was where that awareness came in of, I understand that I was not being aware. I'm aware of the fact that I was unaware and didn't respond to her accordingly, like a normal person would.
all right, then I think I'm good.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it looks like we're probably only going to have time for like one more if you want to pick a favorite among the last few
Okay.
too.
Let's see, what do I have here? So, all right. There's two that I can, you guys can pick. One is where I was on the phone with somebody making an appointment and I had like a thought about what was happening, or I can talk to you about I was writing something about a specific subject, not for school or anything like that, but it was just something I was writing out. And I was having that sensing thing. So, I mean, a little bit the sensing thing on the other one too. I don't know. Which one would you rather me talk about?
I'd say let's do the phone. We've got some writing ones already. Let's
Okay, yeah.
let's do the phone. And what number is that?
This was beep number 4, 5. Yeah. Okay, so I was on the phone. I was making a call, and the woman answered the phone right away saying, "Please hold." And in the exact moment that she said that, I had a thought that it was an immediate thought of, she sounded very agitated, and I just immediately started considering other ways that she could have answered the phone, and then at the same time after that thought, I'm probably just reading too into it. She's probably just busy, and not to take her way of answering the phone so personally. And in the thought of all of that, the beep happened, and I was able to write everything down.
Okay. And so what exactly of all that is caught in flight by the beep?
The part where I wrote down the beep caught the very end of it, where I was saying how I'm probably reading too much into her emotional state, I guess.
Okay. And is it only that, I shouldn't take this personally, I'm reading too much into it, or is the other stuff still present as well? Here's how else she could have answered, and boy, she sounded agitated, and
in the beep caught me being mostly experiencing, but then the thought of me taking it too personal. Like that was the most that I was more involved in that part of my experience than I was with the previous thoughts. That's where the beep caught it.
okay. And so does that mean I'm entirely into this don't take it personally, or I'm only mostly into don't take it personally and there's still something else in my experience too?
I'm mostly into the not taking it not taking her personal, with in mind having that inner sensing of her, like her as a person. I don't know her. I've never met her. I just heard her voice on the phone, and I just was trying to understand her emotional state, in terms of, but also realizing in understanding her emotional state, not to take it personal, whatever it is.
Okay. So I am telling myself or reminding myself or whatever, don't take this too personally. And I'm also somehow trying to acknowledge her as a person, understand her, what she's feeling, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what is caught by the beep.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So all
and
this
do those seem like two
I'm sorry,
separate things? Two separate kind of aspects of the experience?
they seem together to me. They don't seem necessarily separate. It kind of seems like it's happening simultaneously at the same time.
Okay. But part of it is aimed at me, like, hey, Lena, don't take it so personally. And part of it is aimed at, let me try to understand this person as a person.
Yes.
Okay. So about the don't take it personally, how does that present itself to you?
Just that I had an awareness of an awareness, not so much a thought. It was just an awareness of, you can't know what everybody's feeling. Like I can't possibly know what that woman on the other line was feeling or doing or going through or whatever, in that moment. To assume she should be less agitated when she answers the phone or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And you said that's not really a thought.
Right. It was more of just an awareness of the moment. Like I had like your own inner voice kind of thing. Like just, I don't know how to explain it. Like just, it's the same feeling as that sensing thing. And it's coming to me as more of like, kind of like your own inner wisdom, like just see it for what it is, kind of like that inner voice that is just always trying to be the more logical part of you, not the personal, emotional part of you. And so that's where I was at in the beep at the end.
Okay. And
So
when you say the same, okay.
Does that mean that don't take it personally isn't really about Lena? It's really about, well, people, you never can know what's really going on with a person.
true. Yes. It's not about what I was feeling about her in that early few seconds prior. It was more about realizing that I cannot possibly know every feeling that everyone's feeling. Yeah. Or specifically hers in that moment.
Okay.
And when you said this is the same kind of sensing feeling or something like that, do you mean the meta kind of folded over onto myself observery kind of thing we talked about before?
Yeah, I was aware of myself feeling of like, I wouldn't say offended, but like aware of myself feeling the I guess rudeness. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, rudeness of her tone on the other side, you know. And in that awareness, that is where I developed the whole like not taking it personal, and realizing that I can't possibly know the feelings of this woman who I am only on the phone with for like 1 second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is some kind of inner sensing, inner wisdom. Doesn't really make sense to call it a thought. It's not, I'm not thinking this, but I'm somehow sensing it, aware of it.
Yeah. And it comes to me subtly, but enough to where I can be very aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And create a whole inner experience, yeah.
And a couple of times you alluded to an inner voice, but I couldn't tell if you really meant like I hear a voice or if you just meant kind of inner wisdom and we're using kind of voice and wisdom synonymously there.
When I said voice, it's like in this particular beep, it was not a voice like how I would normally hear myself when I read and I'm hearing it in my head, or when I'm having like a very specifically loud thought that I can hear my own voice in my head. It was like a voice, and I want to say that it reflected a tone, like there was a tone to it, but it wasn't necessarily like talking like this as it would be in maybe other thoughts that are more wordy. This was just more, I understand that this inner sensing has the tone to it, and I could pick up on it, and I could understand whatever needs to be understood in a way that's not necessarily verbal, but I can gather it in a similar way that you would gather the understanding in a conversation. Like a conversation without the words.
Yeah, so it's coming to me sort of like a voice in that it has some vocal characteristics. It has a tone, it's got a message, but it's not that I hear words or hear a voice. Right. But I somehow apprehend like this has a tone, this is like saying like as if someone's telling me, hey, you can't know what. Is that right?
It's the same as like that when I'm trying to explain the sensing of something, and in that experience, you know, I'm sensing something. I'm having this kind of openness to this sensing thing. And that's what comes out when I start to become aware of myself. I have this kind of sensing thing happen. And then that's when X, Y, and Z goes down.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we're saying it has like a tone to it. How would you describe the tone?
When I say tone, like there's a character, like I'm trying to characterize it almost in a way. Like I'm trying to put a,
like, is it like admonishing, or it's kind of encouraging, or those don't really fit what you're trying to describe?
In saying tone, I'm saying that the thing that I'm sensing has a sort of a bit of a persona to it, where I could almost, I can't see it, I'm not visualizing it, I'm not necessarily hearing it in an auditory way in my mind, but there's like a tone to it, like I can sense there is a particular persona about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how to describe that persona. It's not necessarily a thing of itself. It's not like a person. It's not like a whole construction of. It's not me thinking it's me. I mean, I know it's. I mean, I have to think it's me, but that's just theory. But it's. I'm just aware of something, or I don't know how to answer that question, but I do.
It has some kind of
something to it. I just don't know what you would how to break that something to it down to. I don't know how to say what it is. Like there is a particular thing about it, but it's not particular enough to where I can describe it.
Okay.
So tone does not mean an auditory thing. Tone
Right. Like
means,
there's like to it. Yeah. Like a there's a recognition when I feel that I'm recognizing something, but I'm not hearing an actual beep or specific hum or sound or something.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something about like, well, it's me. No, it's not me. Well, I got to assume it's me because who else could it be? But I'm going to try to bracket that theory.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask about that, but then your comments made me think maybe she can't. Maybe it's too hard to say whether this seems like it's me, like this is Lena, or if it seems like this is sort of some outside thing that has made its way into my experience, but I'm not really in charge of it.
In my
either one.
In my experience, because when I have these experiences, when I have these like little moments of insight, I don't necessarily feel they're from me. I have to think they're from me. Like logically, if I just put my theory into it, I have to say, oh, that's me, But in the moment of experiencing it, I'm not feeling directly that it's directly coming from me. I have this, I don't know if it's imaginative, but I feel that I am imagining that something way wiser is giving me that insight, not that it's not coming from within me. It's just, I imagine it as separate.
So we're probably running out of time here, but let me summarize what I've got about this. So there is a tone which is something like I'm a recognition of a wisdom-y thing that says, well, you can't really know. Take it easy. Don't jump to too many conclusions, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't seem to be me talking to myself, and it doesn't seem to be me somebody else talking to me. But yet this idea comes with a tone of intelligence or wisdom or something. Is that fair?
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
All right. So I would say we should leave it to you all to figure out when we're going to do this again, and then we want to decide. You all can decide whether we want to schedule a separate time to debrief or do that at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be, I think, good to. I was just thinking in my head a second ago to ask a few questions. So maybe we can arrange something where we can ask a couple questions and from there continue if that is something you guys feel would be good for you guys.
Okay.
So one more. So you're going to arrange another sampling day, and then either at the end of that or at another time, we'll have a question and answer and what it is that we want to do about that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you, Lena.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
See you later.